Today we're going to make AI agents with CrewAI to plan out our next travel. We'll also use Cursor AI for the coding, or the IDE, in V0 or Vercel to create the front end for us. And then finally have it explain how to put all of this together to give us a full application. Stay with me all the way to the end to see the end result. And as always, I will have this project in my GitHub, which will be a link in the description. Let's start creating AI agents. Okay, well, the first thing we're going to do is create our crew, and I'm going to use Cursor AI. And if you have not used Cursor AI before, I do have a video here that you can look at, but this is an amazing tool. It's basically a fork of VS Code with AI laid on top of it, and you'll see this here in a little bit as I'm coding. But what I want to do first is create a virtual environment where then we're going to start creating the files for our crew, and then we'll get on to other things to create our front end and our Flask server to tie everything together. So I have my terminal up. As you can see, I'm using a base environment. So let's go ahead and create another one. So Python -m benv and then .venv, and I'll name it surprise trip. Okay, created it. Now we have to activate it. So on Mac, it's source and then .venv surprise trip /bin/activate. Okay, great. Now you can see that we are using this virtual environment. Now we need to install CrewAI. Now there are two things you can do. You can either type in pip install CrewAI, which is like the base installation, or what we're going to be doing in this video is we need all the other tools that come with it, because we're going to be using a couple different tools to help us scrape the internet to be able to help plan out our trip that we're going to have in the future. So instead, it's going to be pip install apostrophe CrewAI, then the brackets, tools, brackets, and apostrophe. Okay, now that's done. I cleared my terminal. Let's bring this down and go ahead and create our first file. And this is just going to be a simple crew file. So go ahead and type in new file, and we can just call this crew.py. Now, in the past videos, there have been a lot of iterations. Well, I won't say a lot of iterations, but there's been a few iterations of how to actually start your CrewAI. And with this one, it's a little bit more complicated, and it uses something called YAML files for all of the configuration. So all the tasks and what the agents that we want to create. Okay, and we're going to be using decorators around methods, and we're going to create a class to do this. Okay, well, that's kind of a lot, right? So let's just go ahead and start coding. And this will make a little bit more sense as we go. But let's go ahead and do from CrewAI import agent, crew, process, and task. And then we can go ahead and do from CrewAI.project import crew base. And then we have agent, crew, and task. And these are different because these are lowercase and the other ones are uppercase, and you'll see here in a few minutes why that's the case. So let's go ahead and do from CrewAI underscore tools import. We have Serper Dev tool, and then we also need the scrape website tool. And then we have from Pydantic import base model, and then also field, and then from typing import list and optional. Now, one of the best things that's happened to, I think, AI agents in general, whenever you're developing them, is structured output, okay? And we are going to make sure that what we get from the trip planner is the way we're going to get it every time. Now, some of the properties that we get from this structured output may not, it might return nothing, and that's okay. We can handle that in the front end. Structured output is amazing. So we need to create a few classes so we can have the AI agents output exactly the way we want it. We'll say class activity, then base model. Okay, so what you can see here with cursor, it kind of is giving me some things based on what it's seeing activity and what I might want to use this for. So I'm going to go ahead and hit tab. And it already has these for me. Now, not all of these are correct. I'm going to modify some of these, but this is just one of the amazing things about Cursor, okay? I use Cursor because it does take time to kind of write these things, and this just helps out so much. Now, one of the things we can change is cuisine, if I can spell that properly. And then we need the why it's suitable. And then we have the ratings and the reviews. Okay, perfect. That's what we need for, this is going to be an activity that we can do for that day with the trip planner. Now, that's just the activity for the day. Now we need something that's going to give us back what to do for an actual day. So we can say class day plan base model. And then we're going to have a date, the activities, which is going to be a list of the class we just created. And then we'll have the restaurants and the flight if that day we either are arriving or we're leaving. So I go and hit tab, right? I don't actually need these, but it gave me the date and activities. I just need to add a couple more. And I'm going to start typing, and it's going to kind of maybe try and fill it in for me. So I can say restaurants. And then there's going to be, this is going to be a list. And this is going to be a list of, well, it's not going to be a list of restaurants. It's just going to be a string. I actually get rid of this. That's kind of annoying it's doing that. But then after that, we need the flight information. So flight, and this could be optional. So it's going to be optional, string, and then field none, right? This is the flight of the day plan, or we need to say flight information. Okay, now that was our second class. Now we have the day plan. Now we need our whole itinerary, which is going to be a list of these day plans and the name of our itinerary and also where we're going to stay, assuming that you're going to stay at one hotel. So let's go and create the class itinerary. And then we are going to need a list plan of the days. And I can, again, get rid of this, but that's okay. It still made my life a little easier. Then we need the name, string, and this is the name of the itinerary. And then we also need the hotel name that we're going to be staying at. Okay, so what we've done here is created our Pydantic models that we're going to be using to make sure our structured output is exactly the way we want it. And we're going to be using the itinerary class to make sure that happens. And then inside of here, we have these other classes that are going to make sure everything's structured exactly the way we want. All right, now that we have the class, the itinerary class that we're going to use for our structured output, now we start creating our crew. And this is going to be a little different, right, than what we have been used to, maybe creating crews or what you've done before if you're not up to date on creating one. So we're going to start using decorators to help with us. And this is the first one called crew base. This is going to help us with the class that's going to have all of our agents and tasks inside of it. So with the @crew base decorator, then we can say class surprise travel crew. Then we need our doc strings, so surprise travel crew. And then after this, we're going to actually import two things that we have not created yet. And these are agents configurations and our task configurations. Okay, we are going to make those after we finish creating our crew. And that's going to tell the crew what the agents and tasks are supposed to do. So let's go ahead and call the first one the agents config, which I know we haven't created yet, but we're going to. So it's going to be in that location agent slash agent config slash agents.yaml file. We're going to do the same thing for the task. So task under config, and it's going to be in the configuration file for task.yaml. And this YAML file, this means it can mean multiple things. I think this, some people interpret it as yet another markup language. So it's just another way to kind of store our configurations, okay? If you haven't dealt with them yet, it's going to look a little bit different, but that's okay. I'll go through that with you. But we're going to have 3 agents. The first one is going to be the personalized activity planner, right? So for our activity class, we need somebody that's going to make sure that all the activities that we're going to be doing, that we're going to plan them out day by day. So this is another decorator, but this is the lowercase agent decorator. It's going to denote to the crew base that this is an agent that we're about to create. So we're going to define this. This is just a Python function. So personalized activity planner. Okay, and this is going to return a type of agent class. Then we can say we're just going to return an agent. The name is going to be self.agents underscore config. And so what we're doing is we're taking the agent's configuration and we're gonna get the configuration, everything needed for this personalized activity planner. So actually I can just copy this here. And there we go. So we're gonna know from the YAML file when we see it that we're gonna get all the configurations from this personalized activity planner. And sorry, this is not named, this is supposed to be config. And the next thing, we need to tell this agent what tools we need. And for this activity planner to go out and tell us what we need, it needs to go and scrape the internet. So we're going to say tools is equal to, and there's going to be 2 of them. We're going to use the Serper Dev tool, and we're also going to use the scrape website tool. The Serper Dev tool, I'm going to show you how to get the free version. Once before we run this, I'll show you how to get the API key and sign up. Just use the free version. That's all I've used, and I've never hit the requests to have to go up to the next one. And then this is going to actually scrape the websites once we figure out where what information we need to get. We're going to say for now, at least verbose is true. And then finally, allow delegation is going to be equal to, allow delegation is equal to false. Okay, and then we are done. So this is the first agent that we're going to be creating. This is going to be the personalized activity planner that's going to use tools to go out and figure out what activities based on the date for our trip that we end up giving it, what we can do. Now we have 2 more agents to create. So we're going to say at agent, and then this next one is going to be a restaurant scout. So we're going to say def restaurant scout. Okay, and this is going to be returning an agent as well. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it go ahead. I'm going to press tab so it can create this for me, but I'm just going to go ahead and change some of these things, right? But so based on what I did up here, it knows that the config is equal to self.agentsconfig restaurant scout. I actually do need both of these tools so it can figure out the restaurants that we can eat at. The verbose is true and the allow delegation is false again. Okay, and this is one of the greatest things about Cursor AI, right? Is I started typing, and based on what I've done and kind of based on what the library can do, it can kind of guess what you might want it to do or what you might be coding. Now, the last one is we need an agent to take all these things and actually compile this into an itinerary. And this is where the structured output comes into play. So we're going to say at agent, and then we're going to say define itinerary. I cannot spell itinerary planner, compiler, whatever you want to call it. And then we're going to, from here, the agents config, this is going to be in the configuration itinerary compiler. Instead, we're only going to be using the Serper Dev tool. The verbose is true, and the allow delegation is false. When we come to the task for this agent, that is where we're going to tell, hey, we want this to be in a structured output based on the itinerary class that we created above. Okay, and then now what we need to do now is actually we need to create all the tasks for these agents. This is going to be the main part, right? This is the main coding part here is with the crew base, and we won't have much more after this. So just stick around for creating this crew base, and then you have done the bulk of the code. Okay, so let's go and create the 3 tasks. Now the decorator is at task lowercase, right? When it's the uppercase here, this is the class that we're returning, is the type agent. This is just a decorator to tell the crew base, hey, this is a task, not an agent. So we're gonna say define personalized activity planning task. I can go ahead and actually just press tab to finish that for me. And yeah, planning task. Okay, and then what we need to do is actually return a task. This is the task object that we need to return. Now, again, the config is going to be self.task_config personalized activity planning task. And it'll find it once we create these. You'll see what I mean. And then the agent, not agent, is equal to self.personalized activity planner. And this is all we need for the task. We just need the configuration so it knows what to do for the task and then the agent that is tied to. Now we need to go and create the others. So we're going to say at, actually right here, it is basically has it for me. So I can just press tab, get rid of this. So I know it's the restaurant scouting task, right? This is the restaurant scout agent, restaurant scouting task. I want to go from the task config to get everything it needs to know from here. And then the agent is self.restaurant scout. Great. Now we can go ahead and create our last one. And this is where the output really comes into play, right? So it kind of has it here, but not quite. So we're going to get rid of this. So I've just pressed tab. It's at task, itinerary compilation task. Okay, great. It's returning a task. And we had the configuration for it. And we had the agent. Okay, the agent is up here, itinerary compiler. But there's one more thing we need here. And this is the output underscore JSON. This is going to be equal to the itinerary class. So when it gets, this is going to be the last task, right? So the itinerary compiler is kind of the last thing that compiles everything that we've taken. We've got from online for our travel plan. Then it's going to take that and it's going to output everything into the itinerary class, which we made here. And this is especially nice when we had the front end. And in the front end, we're expecting certain properties. Then we know every time that we can just have these properties sent there and we won't have to worry about those kind of errors. Okay. Now what we need to do is we have all of our agents and we have our tasks. Now let's combine these into a crew. So we have the last decorator, which is the at lowercase crew. We're going to say define crew self, and then we're going to return a crew object. And then this is going to, it's always nice to have doc strings so that it can help, it can help with the AI and everything knowing what this specific function is. So this, we can say creates a surprise travel crew. All right, then we actually need to return a crew object. So we can say return crew, and then we need to give it all the agents and the task and the type of process and everything. All right, so agents is equal to self.agents. And this is fine when we have the agent, agent decorators. If we just say self.agents, it's going to know that these are all of the agents that we need for the crew. So we come down here and we do the same thing for tasks, right? So task is equal to self.task. The process is going to be process.sequential. And now verbose is equal to 2 here. When we create the crew, then we can set the verbose to 2. Okay, well, we just created the crew. Now we need to get the configuration ready, which means we have to tell the agents what they're supposed to do in the task that they're supposed to perform. Okay, so back in the crew base, we need to create these YAML files. Let's go ahead and do that. So under here, we're gonna create a new folder called config to kind of organize it. And the first one is gonna be the agents.yaml file. So again, with Cursor, this should kind of help me fill some things in, but it won't know everything. But the first thing we need to do is give the name of the first agent that we had created, which was the personalized activity planner. Now, of course, it doesn't know what to do next. So the next thing we need to do is give it the role, the goal, and the backstory. And how we do that is you just kind of tab over, and we're gonna start typing in role, and then you give this like the right caret or the greater than sign. And then below that, you're gonna add another tab, and we're gonna say this is the activity planner. This is kind of the role that's gonna play in this crew. And then after the role, we have the goal. So it's kind of the same format here. So we goal, and kind of points to what it's supposed to do. All right, so research and find cool things to do at the destination, including activities and events that match the traveler's interest and age group. Okay, so then the last thing is the backstory. Again, it's the same thing, backstory, colon, and then the greater than sign. And then you want to tab over one more, and we're just gonna give this backstory. Okay, so here's the backstory for this agent. So it's just you're skilled at creating personalized itineraries and for the specific preferences and demographics of the traveler. Okay, so for the next two, I'm gonna go ahead and type them in, but we're gonna, as you can see here, Cursor is already trying to fill in based on what it did up here, right? This is the great thing about Cursor. It knows there needs to be a role, a goal, and a backstory. So I could just hit tab, and then I can just modify this to what I need it, which is what I'll do. But if I also start, the other agent was the itinerary compiler. So boom, like that. This is how easy Cursor is, right? I am going to modify these. So if you want to go ahead and pause this, but it knows that each of them now need a role, a goal, and a backstory, and it knew the agent's name. So I'm going to go ahead and fix these, and we'll be back. Okay, so I'll have this in my GitHub again, so you can just copy and paste this if you want, but I would recommend at least coding out the outline for each agent, so you just kind of have a feel of this is a different way to actually create the agents, right? We have with the crew, but this is how we're going to tell the agents what they're going to do, and this is separated from the Python code, which is nice, and it makes it easier to kind of modify it. Now we need to do the same thing for the task. So under the config folder, go to new file and type in task.yaml. Now this follows kind of the same format. It's just some of the properties are different, but this is a lot bigger. I'm not gonna go through typing all of this out with you. It would take me a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and put all this information in, and then you can either type it yourself, or I would recommend going to my GitHub and just copying this. Okay, so I went ahead and put in all this information. So it's the same thing. This is the name of the task in my crew. It needs a description, and it needs the expected output. So the same thing for the restaurant scouting task, the description and the expected output, and then finally again for the itinerary compilation task. Now we have the agents, and we have all of the tasks that the agents know how to perform. And also here you can see I have these curly braces with like the variables inside of here. And these are going to be used once we kind of get this information from the crew. This YAML file is going to know to retrieve the information and put that in here, and to use this information in order to search online with the tools that it was given. All right, the next thing we need now are our API keys. So we need to create a .env file. So over in our folder, just create a new file, and name it .env. Now we're gonna need a Serper API key and our OpenAI API key. So the first one is Serper _API _key. Then we need our OpenAI API key, and then we can have our OpenAI _model. And I'm just gonna set it to GPT-4o as default. Now for the Serper API key, let's go ahead and get that now. Now what you'll do is go ahead and go over to serper.dev, and as you can see, this is a Google search API. Okay, you get a total of 2,500 free queries whenever you sign up. So when I say you can just use the free version of this, I really mean you can just use the free version. And they have many different things here, like a search for images, news, you can get maps, places, videos, patents. They have all kinds of things here, right? We're just gonna basically be using the search. So let's first go ahead and sign up. Well, I'm going to sign in, but you go ahead and sign up. And after you're done signing in, here is the dashboard. So, within the past few days, I've been testing this on other things on this account. So I made 153 requests. I still have a lot left, right? And I have not given it my credit card bill. So this is what's really nice about it. But what you're going to do is over on the left-hand side here, or up here, I guess, you can type in API key. Here is your key, and you're just going to copy this and then put that in the .env file. And then if you go to platform.openai.com, we need our OpenAI key, go over to the dashboard, go to API keys, and then go ahead and create a new one here and put that in your .env file. Okay, now that we've created our .env file, the last file we need to create is a way to actually run our crew. We have everything set up, now we need to run our crew. So go ahead and go to your folder, create a new file, and you can just name this main.py. And then from here, we just really need to import our surprise travel crew. So from crew, import surprise travel crew. And then we can just create a function called run, how about run crew. The next thing we're gonna do is create our inputs, and I'm gonna explain exactly what this is gonna do after I make it. All right, now what I have here are inputs. Okay, so what exactly are these inputs? So we have origin, destination, age, hotel location, flight information, and trip duration. Okay, these are this is basic information about kind of what I am going to do for my trip planner. So now I want the crew to take this information and then go search everything on the web it possibly can to give me a trip around this information. Now, where do these go? Well, if we go back to our task YAML file, you can see they're right here, right? So this is the traveler's information. It's going to take that when we give it to the crew. It's going to take those inputs, put them here throughout the task, and then it's going to go ahead and perform whatever it needs to with this information. Okay, so these look like variables because they kind of are. We're going to take it from these inputs right here. We're going to send this into the crew. Now, how we do that is we can say result equals surprise travel crew. This is surprise travel crew dot kickoff, and then you can, just to make sure you know what it is. So inputs equals inputs. So we have the surprise travel crew. We instantiate it, and then we're gonna say dot crew. So this is the crew. We want to create the crew from this, and then we want to go ahead and kick off the crew with these inputs. And then, like I said, these inputs are going to be put into that YAML file. And then we're just going to go ahead and print the result. Okay, then you need this last bit of code so that we can actually run our crew when we run the file. And then we're going to go ahead and bring up the terminal and then go ahead and run the crew. So we're going to see if this works, and if not, we'll fix the errors. All right, well, as you can see, there is a mistake. And if we kind of look through this, right here, we run the crew, we have the surprise travel crew, and then it has something about the tasks here, right? So right here it says, my crew has an error with this, saying something about there's no like get here. So what I realized, and we can go ahead and fix this, is in the tasks here, if we go back to the, actually change this to my_crew, thinking that if I named it crew, that was the problem, but that is not. So here, this actually needs to be a function, right? So we need to add parentheses around these agents. Okay, and that had, because it didn't have a way to get them because it didn't see it as a function. Now we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna clear this, and we're gonna see if this works now. So there was one more error, and back in the crew, see, this is with the updates, things are different. I had this 2 originally here because I think at one point this was a number, but it told me that it's expecting a Boolean in the crew. So this verbose is also true here. This is not a number 2. It is just set to true. Okay, and I think that may be it. So those are the 2 errors. Now let's go ahead and try to run this again. Okay, great. And so far it's working. The first agent that's going to work is the activity planner. And then what it did is has the traveler's information. So all of the inputs, as you can see that I hard coded, it's adding them here. And then it's going to go ahead and have some thoughts about what to do. So the first tool input is the search query. So the best activities and events in Rome for 30-year-olds. So it used Serper and it got all of these search results. And then what it's doing is it's going to take some of those search results. So this one right here is from theromanguide.com. So that URL came from here in this link. So it takes that link and then, the website crawler, that tool is going to go through this site, as you can see what it's doing. It's going to try to take all of that information. And here's doing the next one. So it's basically going through all these sites, trying to take their information, and then it's going to find from there what the best activities that we can do for that day are. And then whenever it's done, here it has the final answer. So day 1, arrival and introduction to Rome. It has, the activity is check in the hotel. There's a hotel location in Rome, and then kind of just give some information about these, right? So then one of the activities is to climb to the top of St. Peter's Basilica. I am not pronouncing that correctly. I am so sorry. But after that, it gives me all these things like the reviews and ratings from TripAdvisor on this trip, okay? And then it has day 2, it has day 3, day 4, and then day 5. Okay, and then it moves on to the restaurant scout, and it's going to keep doing this until we get to the final answer, and I'll see you whenever it's done. Okay, so now what we can see here is the last agent is the itinerary compiler, and it's saying here's your detailed 5-day Rome itinerary. Okay, so look at me looking at the basic flight information from New York to Rome. Prices, $160 one way, $334 round trip, and these are the options it gives. Okay, so here are the airlines. It also says that I guess that it found that I can take. It gives me hotel information. It decided what I should do on day 1 given the time. Here's day 2 and so forth, right? And then here are some of the highly rated restaurants that I can visit. Now, this is great, right? This is like the normal output, right? This is the final answer. This is the result that we would get from our main.py file. I say print the result. This is normally what I would get. However, because in our crew, let me lower this a little bit. In our crew for the itinerary task, the output JSON was of this itinerary class or this object, which we created initially. So it's going to take all that information and put it into this structured output. And it did. If we scroll all the way down, this is right here, all this kind of information. This is what the final answer is for us as a structured output. Now let me go ahead and make this a little bit nicer to read. Okay, so what I've done is I went to JSON Formatter, just this free website. I copy and paste the JSON data in here. You click process, and then it comes down here and it formats it for us. So let me full screen this. And so what you can see here is at the base of the first itinerary class, let me go back here. You can see that it has days, name, and hotel. This is days, name, and hotel. So if we expand the days for each day, we have activities, the restaurants we can go, and on the first day, here is our flight. And it does this for each day. And this is amazing. This is our full itinerary that it gave us, right? That is absolutely amazing. Okay, great job. You just created a crew that was given basic information, and it created a whole itinerary for me or for you for the next 5 days going to Rome. And that's great and all that we have the result, but just in text form, I don't really like that. It doesn't always look nice and it's hard to read. But what if we had a front-end website that could take that information and display it nicely for us? And that's what we're about to do next with V0. Okay, so what you need to do is go to v0.dev. You're going to go through a sign-up process, and then once that's done, it only takes a couple minutes, then you'll be here. And what this main screen does is basically lets you ask questions, and it creates a front-end website for you. Now it typically uses, well, I think all the time, unless stated otherwise, it uses Next.js and React as the frameworks to create your front end. So for instance, I could say, create a hero landing page. Okay, that was very, I didn't really give it much of a prompt, but it's going to come up with something, right? And it even says, it mentions it's going to use React, and it uses Tailwind CSS. So once it's started on the hero landing page, right, as it's coding, it's going to build it over here. Like this is like the preview panel. Right, so then when it's done, we have these buttons, and this is just a standard image that we could replace with something else. Now, that was quick. This might not look the best, but we can tell it to, add colors, different text, and whatever else. So what we are going to do then is, at the top left, you can choose to create a new chat, which is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to go ahead and paste this in, and I'll let you be able to copy this if you want. But what this is basically saying is I want to create a website about travel planner similar to, let's do similar to kayak.com, where the users ask 6 questions with these examples. So these examples are the inputs that were hard coded. And then once that information is submitted, you need a loading page and wait for the backend to send the response. And this is the great thing about, again, how powerful having a structured output is. I give it this example of the structured output, and then whenever it creates the front end, it'll be able to map all of this to the results page once we submit everything for the crew to give like what this did. And because it's structured output, it'll give us this every time, and we don't have to worry about whether the mapping has to change on the front end or not. It'll always be like this. So let's go ahead and submit this. And again, yours is gonna be different than mine, right? Unless I'll have this in my GitHub, so you can just copy this, but whenever you do it, it is going to look different than mine. And that's perfectly fine. I've done this quite a few times, and it already looks different. Like every time it almost looks different. So as it's coding, there's nothing here yet. Right here is it's just mocking data. So it doesn't have anything yet to preview it. There's just a white page, but it will have something here in a minute. So it looks like I got an error. That's fine. I'm just gonna say fix this. And then I guess once it's done coding everything, which I think it is now. Oh, it's not done here. It's creating everything. Okay, so see, looks like it created 4 different, I didn't wait long enough. So it created all these different components, which, is the whole thing about React, is creating components. If you don't know, the great thing about this is if you don't know anything about React, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to. You can just have it ask questions for you, right? You can ask questions to have it fix things, whatever is wrong with it, okay? So let's go ahead and test this out. So let's just, it doesn't really matter, right? It's using just default data, so I can really put whatever I want in here. JFK and then 5. So if I then click plan my trip, it's then going to say, it's gonna have this loading page. And then once we have loading page, it gives us to the result page. Again, this one is just hard coded, and that's okay. But look at this page, right? This is so much better to look at than just having the text in your editor, in your terminal, right? Now, this may not look the best still for a website, but this wrote this as I was talking to you. So maybe less than a minute it took to do all of this stuff, and has all of these components for me. Now, I can sit here, and what I would recommend you doing is you can keep talking to it and having it fix all this, and having it maybe look nicer. Maybe you want a landing page. Maybe you want to have images in the background, more colorful, whatever. We could definitely have stars for the rating and all this stuff, right? But I just want to show you next how to get a backend working with this and with our CrewAI. So we have the front end, the crew, now we just need a backend. All right, so what I did, and this may not be the best prompt, but I said, can you create a backend so I connect that to the front end, and also give me steps on how to install everything. And actually, I am going to stop this because I want to create a backend with Node and Express. That is not what I want, because we need to execute Python code. So we need a Python backend. Can you create a Python backend instead? Okay, so now it's going to go ahead and create the backend for us. So this is the Flask app, right? This is, I've done this a lot. We have the one route, which is going to be called on the submit button. We're going to have here's all the data it's going to get from the front end. And then this is just a mock, right? But I actually need this. We're going to call the crew here. So this is going to be replaced, and we're going to call the crew, and then that's going to give us results, and then we're going to return that. And what the great thing is it gives me the setup, right? It's saying, so here's the backend. Now let's provide the steps to install everything and connect the back end to the front end. So here's how to create the virtual environment for Python. Here's what I need to install. Here's the npx. This is how you install the React. That's how you install React. So it'll have you go to that directory. You need to install all of these things. So I can just copy that and install it. Replace the components and all this stuff, right? So this gives me the full list of what I need to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this, and then we'll come back whenever I have this done. Okay, so I finally kind of got everything working together here in Cursor. As you can see, there's a lot more files all of a sudden, and this is because React, whenever you install it, it comes with a lot of files. Just whenever you create, through that way you create the React app, it has a lot of files. But I have the app. This is the Flask backend. You might run into error with cores, so this is what it's for the cross-site. But this is all the same code. I just copied the code that it gave me. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just try to test this out. So I have the Flask app running right here on the left-hand side. On the right terminal, I have the front end running, and then whenever I load it up, here it is. The text is a little different, right? This is kind of hard to see. That's okay. I'm not too worried about that right now. I just want this to get working, and then when we're done, we could make this look better. Really light. I will definitely be changing this in 5 days. So I'm just going to plan my trip. The text here does say planning your perfect trip, and then here we go. This worked. Again, we'll fix the text. There's no worries about that. But this is wonderful. Right now, we have our own front end working with the back end. The last thing is getting the crew to work. How do we do that? Okay, so here we are. And like before, we kind of had inputs instead of having setting all of these, right, which we can actually keep this here, that's fine. But we had the inputs, and then we designated each of these to specific information. And this time we'll be getting it from the front end. So the first thing is, let's get rid of this mock itinerary. We do not need to worry about that. Okay, so what I've done is I just create the inputs similar to the way it was when it was hard coded, and then for the inputs here, I set it to what was done up here. You can combine this. That's perfectly fine, but I'm gonna keep this here so you can kind of just really understand what's going on. So I have the inputs here. It's going to be a dictionary, and we're going to set all of this information that we're going to send to our crew. Now we need to create our crew. We don't really need this simulation for time either, and we're going to be returning something else. But let's say we are planner crew is now going to be equal to our surprise crew. Now we need to actually import this, right? So let's actually go ahead and press tab. So we have this from my crew import surprise travel crew. This is what I wanted. So we have the planner crew is equal to the surprise travel crew dot kickoff, and then we give it the inputs. This is just like we did it before. Now that we have the information, we can keep that the same. And now the only thing is, right, there's a difference whenever you're working back end to front end. This is the output is of class crew. So when you do this kickoff, right, I think it's here. This kickoff, it's going to return a crew output class type, right? So the type is no longer dictionary. It's not anything. It's a crew output. But what they allow us to do is we can say, because it's a crew output, we can say planner underscore crew dot to underscore dictionary. And they had this function there. So in case you're using a pedantic model, you can change it to a dictionary. So now we have this crew output, and then we're going to return that crew with a JSONify like it already was. But instead of the mock, we're going to go ahead and return this actual one. Now we have officially tied everything together. Let's save this. It refreshed the Flask server here. It does it automatically. Just for this, so you can see it. So that the destination is Rome FCO. The hotel location is downtown Rome. And then I'm going to say JFK 123, leaving at 10 a.m. on October 25th this time, 2024, and coming back October 30th at, let's say, 6 a.m. Okay, so the trip is going to be 5 days. Now it's going to have our actual data, send it to the backend. So plan my trip. It's planning the trip, and this is going to take longer. So we're going to go ahead. Problem that I forgot is that the front end still has mock data right here. We need to change this so it no longer has mock data. Okay, so there are a couple ways that I could have handled this. I could have stayed here in cursor and asked it to fix it, but I actually went back to V0 and asked it to, hey, I got this error. I no longer need the mock data. Give me the correct post request from the front end to get the actual data. So I went ahead and fixed this, and now let's try it again. This should work. And then we're going to see the crew working in the back end. So plan my trip. And now finally, as you can see, it's now calling the crew. It's calling the activity planner and everything, right? So it's going and executing all the tools to grab everything from the website to give us our itinerary. Okay, and here it is. Again, I know the text, it kind of got messed up whenever I installed everything. I can have just Cursor AI fix that. That's okay. Maybe I'll do that in a minute. But this is now our itinerary from October 25th to the 30th. This is the hotel we're staying at. This is day one. This is kind of telling us, based on what it found, when things are actually going to arrive and depart, probably the closest flights. And these are the activities that it wants to do for day one. We arrive at 8:20 a.m., so we have plenty of time that day. And then day two, this is what it's telling us we can do. Then day 3, day 4, day 5, and then finally day 6, we depart. And there's no activities because we are leaving. Okay, so we just used CrewAI, which had AI agents that gathered all this information for us for a trip by using the front end to get the information, send it to the back end, which we use Flask for, and we needed something in Python so that we could execute the CrewAI. So it retrieved that information, CrewAI did its thing, getting all the information for the travel plan, sent it back to the front end, and then displayed it for us. Now we just created a whole application with an AI agentic framework. We used Cursor for the coding, and then we used V0 or Vercel to do all the front end work for us. And there were mistakes, and actually there were a lot of mistakes kind of off the screen I didn't show, but we were able to fix it, and it worked. I just followed the directions, and it worked. And while you're at it, here are 2 different framework courses, one for CrewAI and one for AutoGen. Go and take a look at them so you can understand these AI agent frameworks better.